That's right, today we're talking about Dragon Ball.
Hey everybody, it's the Airs 1999 coming back at you with another video. This week we will be taking the Homebrew idea to the next level by incorporating the mechanics of another fandom into Dungeons & Dragons. And I thought, well, what was more appropriate than a fandom that already had the word dragon in the title? I'd like to start by saying that I love Dragon Ball. I started by watching Dragon Ball Z Kai back in 5th grade. It was a great show, bright, loud, comedic, and action-packed. At first I didn't really follow the story, but just liked the constant fight scenes. But when I did start to pay attention, I realized that it actually had a pretty interesting story arc. If you haven't seen Dragon Ball, I should warn you that there will be some mild spoilers. And for this video, we're mostly going to be looking into the original show and a bit of the sequel show, Dragon Ball Z. I'll try to avoid too many major details to just focus on the general plot, as well as some items that were in the show. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive right in. Now, when it comes to anime, this one is pretty popular here in the West, but there's still a lot of people who haven't watched it. With that in mind, I'm going to give a brief synopsis. Dragon Ball begins with an extremely powerful boy named Goku who lives alone up in the mountains. He was raised by a man named Gohan who has passed away sometime before the beginning of the show. Gohan's most prized possession was an orange ball with 4 stars on it. Goku uses it as a memento to remember him by. One day, he is visited by a girl named Bulma, who tells him that it's a magical object called a Dragon Ball. There are 7 of them in the world, and when they're gathered together, they will grant a wish. She already has 2, and they go on a fetch quest together for the rest. Along the way, they meet many new friends and enemies, Goku grows stronger, and they get all 7 Dragon Balls. When activated, a large green dragon named Shenron appears to grant a wish. Once the wish has been made, the balls all scatter off in different directions across the world. After this, Goku goes to a man they met named Master Roshi so that he can train in martial arts. From here, the Dragon Balls take a backseat to Goku's training. He participates in a tournament, then goes off on his own travels. He then decides to seek out his grandfather's ball. He encounters and takes down a malevolent army, and the series wraps up with him defeating an evil, demon-like creature and its son. Then in the sequel show, Dragon Ball Z, we find out that Goku is actually one of the last of an alien species known as the Saiyans. Some Saiyan warriors descend on Earth causing much chaos. They end up needing another set of Dragon Balls to fix the damage. They hear of a planet called Namek where they can find them. They fly to Namek, which is inhabited by a race of powerful but peaceful plant-like people. They fight a space titan and use the Namekian Dragon Balls. When they get back to Earth, they have to fight some powerful robots, and then they face against this ancient space monster. Now that was an extremely brief synopsis of the show. If they sound interesting, then I highly recommend that you watch them. There's also another sequel show out right now called Dragon Ball Super, and there's also a show called Dragon Ball GT that is now considered non-canonical. I also mentioned something earlier called Dragon Ball Z Kai. This was basically a condensed version of Dragon Ball Z since it had so much filler. Anyway, we aren't here to review the shows, we're here to talk about how to incorporate them into D&D. Now, I've come up with several ideas, and of course having a working understanding of Dragon Ball will be helpful when it comes to their implementation. Now, one of the most obvious incorporations would just be to add the Dragon Balls to your campaign. Have them hidden in dungeons, and when the party gets them together, they get a free use of the Wish spell. There could also be some NPC groups competing with the party in order to collect them. This could be the basis for an entire campaign. You could have the World Martial Arts Tournament where the party fights against NPCs. Instead of trying to kill them like in a normal D&D fight, the goal would just be to reduce the opponent to 0 HP or knock them out of the fighting ring. There are also a number of areas that could be explored like Muscle Tower, Emperor Pilaf's Castle, or one of the countless cities. In Dragon Ball, Goku gets rid of several different people who are terrorizing towns, like the Rabbit Mob. Yes, that's a real thing. Seriously, this shit was great. And also in Dragon Ball, there's quite a bit of interworldly travel. You could use this for going to different planes of existence. As for items, they could perhaps track down the Dragon Balls using scouters that could lock onto their energy signatures. This could be some divination-based magic item. There's also, of course, the Saiyan scouters that could be used to get some kind of meta knowledge on an enemy, like health or its stats. There's also something pretty cool called Dino Capsules. These are objects that allow pretty much anything to be condensed into a small container and carried around. Shelters, weapons, vehicles, and storage containers have all been condensed using Dino Capsules in the show. These items could act like the instant fortress magic item or have the effect of the tiny hut spell. There was Goku's power pole. This was a magic staff that could grow in length. The show never really seemed to establish a growth limit, but you're probably going to want to put one on there. Probably doesn't need to be as powerful as the one in the show. It could perhaps be like a quarter staff that could double in length or something like that. There are also sensu beans, which can satiate the hunger of whoever eats them for 10 days. They were also used to restore the injured, so they could act like some kind of healing potion. And there are also artificial gravity enhancers. Those could perhaps be used to slow down movement and make fighting harder. You could add feats that would allow characters to learn the fighting techniques from Dragon Ball, like the Destructo Disc, the Fusion Technique, and of course, the Kamehameha Wave. There are a number of really powerful enemies with cool abilities that could be used as bosses, like Cell or Frieza. Now, of course, you wouldn't want these to be as powerful as they were in the show, but these could still be pretty powerful creatures for them to fight. The players could also design their characters off of those from the show. There's the main character, Goku, who could be a human, way of the open hand, lawful good monk. I know he isn't actually human, but it's the closest applicable race. The Desert Bandit Yamcha would be a human, chaotic good, Path of the Totem Warrior barbarian. Mercenary Tao could be a human, lawful evil champion fighter. There's the witch fortune teller Baba, who could be a halfling, lawful neutral divination wizard, and Oolong the Terrible would be a chaotic neutral changeling thief rogue. I really hope that you like the ideas that I've mapped out. If you use them in a campaign, please let me know how it works out. If you like how Dragon Ball sounds, I highly recommend that you give it a watch. You can find it on the internet somewhere. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Tell me what you think down in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye! And always remember that
we can't find paradise. All we have to do is go, go, bring the soul.